and we are live to talk about fire. Hello, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Jace has already commented in the chat that I'm sickly, but here, and I'm happy that you're here. So hopefully these like nice, warming, fiery vibes will uplift your spirit. And the energy's been weird for, a few days, if not longer. And so I just really enjoy being in this space because it definitely uplifts my spirit and my energy afterwards. So I hope that you can feel some of that too.
Yeah, Jace, hope you feel better. Glad
Yeah.
you're here though.
Yeah. Yes. Glad that you're here. So, as you've probably seen when you clicked on this video, we are going to talk about fire and dreams. And I guess I should just start with how we got the inspiration to chat about fire, as this was not the planned chat. And so basically Alexis and I had fire dreams like pretty
Yep.
much the same day.
It was the same night. Yep.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting that we had these dreams. Also, a friend of mine had my friend Mary, who tends to join. She didn't know that we were even talking about fire. She didn't. Oh, she's here. Oh, she's on the road, but she's listening.
Hey, Mary.
Yay. Hi, Mary. So yeah, so Mary shared with me a dream this morning, and it like she started with an explosion with some sort of fire. And I don't even think I shared in the moment that we're going to be talking about fire, but it's just interesting how this energy is really present right now. And so Alexis and I were sharing when we had these dreams, what yesterday, and I love that Alexis was like, is there something going on, in the dream, like with Pluto, or what's going on in the cosmic climate? And so, yeah, I of course, naturally, I looked to what was going on. And so I kind of want to speak to that for a second here and let people come in and join us live. And of course, if you have any questions or you want to share your experiences, what's coming up for you, and also how fire can show up in your dream space, definitely feel free to put that in the chat. I see George is here saying good evening with the fire flame. Yay. Hi,
Hey,
George.
George.
Jim says fire, nah, snicker. Oh, the Beavis and Butthead snicker. And I know I can't do that, but I can hear it. But yes, fire. This is going to be an interesting chat. So the cosmic climate. So I definitely want to check in with the energy right now. As I said, the energy has been weird. I feel it's always weird at this point. I keep saying that, but the dream space has been very active. And
Yes.
so as we're speaking in this moment, I'm really excited because Mercury, yes, we know in its retrograde cycle a week or so ago. However, tonight, as of like an hour ago, Mercury finally moved out of its post shadow period. And so, what that means basically is that Mercury is now out of the territory in which it had its retrograde experience. And so, there was a lot of reflection, refinement. I tend to look at the post retrograde period as a time for integration. So, you're integrating everything that came forth through that, Mercury retrograde and the pre shadow period as well. And so, I think it's really interesting that right on the cusp of this of Mercury entering its new territory, so to speak, we had these really interesting dreams. And I mean, I don't know if I would say they were profound, but what I feel that's interesting, and again, Alexis, myself, and Mary, like we've all had synchronicities in which like little parts of the dream have manifested. Well, and I don't know, actually, Alexis, do you feel that any of the dreams you've had in the past couple of days or maybe the week, have they something of their nature has manifested like pretty like instantaneously? Like even little
Um,
things?
I guess I haven't really thought too much about it because I'm gonna go over my dream with the fire
Mm-hmm.
that I had the other night, and I feel like when I sit here and talk about it with everybody, it kind of pulls forward its
Yeah.
meaning, its what's behind it, and I feel like that's where things are brought to the surface and put into the light for me. Things have been very hectic for me, so I'm remembering my dreams. I actually wrote them down, which is I'm getting
Yeah.
back on track with a little bit,
Yeah.
but things have been so hectic that I haven't been able to like translate the language from my dream to my conscious. I'm
Mhm.
working on it. It's just little by little. So I will get back to you on
Yeah,
that.
maybe we'll reveal something that you didn't really notice that came to fruition. For me, with the dreams that I've had the past 2 days, it was more so the people in my dreams, and also one of my dreams involved a storm or really intense winds and rain, and I experienced that like I had the dream in the morning, and then by the afternoon I experienced that, and I was like, whoa. And then it was like each day after that, what, Monday, Tuesday, yeah, Monday and Tuesday, I saw people that were in my dream, which were my neighbors, and I don't see them often, especially one I rarely even see. He just moved next to us. And so it was really interesting to see them, and they like waved at me, and it was really weird. It felt like I was living in a movie where, I don't know, it's like people just start seeing you, or you start seeing them, and you start to think of like, oh, is
Yes,
this really real? And are like, am I waking up in the dream of life? And because everything, like the dream world and reality was, what, quote unquote reality was blending, and it kind of threw me off for a second. I'm like, what is happening?
I
So
did have a moment. I did have a moment now that I'm thinking about it and we're talking about it. I did have a moment on Sunday where I experienced a really, really strong deja vu.
mhm.
And that usually is from a dream.
Yeah.
So I was just in the car with my friend, and her mom was on speakerphone talking to the two of us, and the conversation immediately clicked into place, and I knew exactly what was going on and what she was going to say and how it was going to go. And I immediately was like, oh my God, deja vu, deja vu, deja vu, as I
Yeah.
do when that happens. But other than that, like I completely even forgot about that. But other than that,
Mhm.
we'll see
We'll
when we go
see what
through my
the
dreams.
things are. Yeah. And I love that Jace typed deja vu-ish as soon, like at the same time you said deja vu the first time. You're like, oh, I had these deja vu. And it was both of you guys synced up at that time. So I'm like, there's something there to that. So that,
Us dream people are really feeling it.
yeah, it's, things are starting to blend and reveal itself in really interesting ways, and it actually gets me really excited. I'm like,
Me
this is the
too.
stuff that I live for. Like, I
It
love,
is.
yes,
It's
it's
like
like
every
so
little
much fun.
new experience is like an excitement and a surprise. And like it always keeps us on our toes and it always keeps us interested. And we're always learning more about ourselves and like existence and the people around us.
Yes, I love it. And so another thing you pointed out too was is some, yeah, you said, is something going on with Pluto, is something going on with Mars,
Mars.
I
Oop.
believe. Was it the, I'm just looking at my almanac here. Yeah, so it was that afternoon after we, or it was probably while we were chatting, I'm not quite sure, but it was at 1:11 p.m., which I, now I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, like stop. Like everything is, yeah. Anyways, I go crazy with this stuff. So
No, because I've been seeing 111 like for the last couple days. So like
yeah.
100%
And
serious.
1:11 is really important for us, like very soon here. So the time, 1:11 p.m. actually. Okay. So, and you guys will find out what that means later. But yeah, so at 1:11 p.m. on Monday, uh, the moon was in Scorpio, and it made a sextile to Pluto retrograde in Scorpio. And essentially that sextile between like any planets is basically supportive energy. It's not what we would call like a major aspect or connection. It's more something like subtle, which I like that subtleness um of like moon and Scorpio and Pluto retrograde. You don't really want anything like hard and like intense, because they're already intense energies on their own. So I definitely felt that energy. I felt with the moon and Scorpio, and the moon was, I mean, it was in its first, in its waxing crescent phase. And so there is like a little bit of light, but it's still in the energy of that new birth and like that dark moon essence. So you're like gradually growing. And so I don't know about that transition from the dark to the light. And we're dealing with the moon in Scorpio and Pluto retrograde. I don't know. There's just, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and then the day that we ended up having the same fire dream, like the day we woke up to from that dream, those dreams, the moon had shifted into Sagittarius.
Right. Yes. 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 Okay. Now I'm seeing this. Okay. Yeah. Everything is blending to me.
I
So
it
I'm
is.
like, was
It's
that Monday
blending.
that we talked or was it Tuesday? Anyways, I think you
Monday.
guys, I think you guys get it.
Monday.
So yeah, it was definitely a powerful moment and it really inspired this chat to talk about fire as I don't know if I can recall having any dreams with fire. I'm sure I have, but I'll share just what I remember of the dream because I didn't write it down, but I'll share the part that really stands out to me. And mostly I feel the feeling so that, of course, that's really important. So I'll share that. And we would love to, and of course, Alexis is going to share her fire dreams. And we would love to hear what you all have to share or what your thoughts are regarding what we discuss here, of course. So definitely feel free to leave them in the chat. Awesome. Cool. All right. So there's some more people saying hello. Welcome in. And it's good to see you again, Shauna. So, all right. We are going to talk about fire, as I mentioned. So, as I always like to do, I just like to define things just so we can get on the right page. It's my Capricorn energy that's lingering around, likes to create some sort of like structure and foundation. So we're all on the same page.
It's highly
And
valued.
yeah, it's I don't know why it's kind of fun for me because there were multiple um definitions or way to define fire, so it was really interesting to see that. And we all know what fire is, so I'm like, oh, how do we put this feeling and this knowingness into words? So what I noted for the definition of fire is that it is the state of combustion in which inflammable materials burn, produce heat, flames, and often smoke. So that's pretty much what I got. So I think the key component is obviously the combustion and the fact that it burns. So there's something burning, there's something alive, and then it produces this heat. So we feel the warmth and the spirit of this element of fire, which literally to me is spirit in a sense. And
Yep.
then we experience the flames and the smoke. Like I think they said often smoke. I feel like most of the time you get smoke with fire. When anything is lit, there's smoke, even when we light our incense. But maybe not a candle flame. So, but when you put the candle flame out, you get the smoke. So
I'm trying. I feel like because the element of fire is actually something consistent in my dreams. Like I have had a lot of dreams where fire is involved in my dreams, and sometimes there's smoke, but I want to say that most of the time there's not any smoke.
Interesting.
I wonder if that's like we'll get into
Yeah,
it.
because then that'll go into the energy of air too.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. And I'm curious, does we always see when there's a fire, we always see smoke from it in nature, right? Like, I mean, what would be your thoughts on that? Because it's
Um,
interesting just to compare it like in your dreams, not seeing the smoke or being an awareness of that versus like
so immediately I think
yeah,
about what is on fire. So different things put out different amounts of smoke. So like you
true.
said, a candle, if you cut the wicks, they're not going to put out a whole lot of smoke. But if you don't cut the wicks, they're going to put out a lot of smoke. Trees, they're going to go up and add a lot of smoke. And if there's moisture in the trees, it'll be smoke and oh my god, I can't believe I have the water version of it,
Oh,
like
like geysers
like
or
mist, not
yeah,
mist, but oh my god, this is gonna. I can't
like
believe it.
springs. Are you talking about like water geysers, right? Am I
Just
saying
like when something like if you put wood that's been
yeah,
rained on top of a
yeah.
fire, it's gonna put out like a weird smoke that's kind of like humid. Like I don't know how to
Oh, yeah,
explain it.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
the words for it. I can explain it.
yeah. No, I get what you're
But
saying.
then
Yeah.
you know, paper or whatever it may, cardboard, whatever it may be, it puts out a different amount of smoke. So it really depends on what is burning.
Mm-hmm. No, that definitely makes sense. And that's something to think about. So with anything, Jay says steam, but steam's not.
Nope, that's it. Steam.
Oh,
That's
is
what I
it
was looking
steam?
for.
Oh, wow.
That's what I was looking for.
Nice. Thanks, Jace.
Pisces.
So, when it comes to addressing or identifying, or I guess evaluating things that show up in your dreams, at least for me and what I have come across and just other people's experiences, is that of course we want to identify the feeling, but as far as like some sort of symbolism or interpretation, it's good to kind of go with how we perceive it in life, or like our perceptions of it, of course our connection to it as like on an individual basis. But what's our relationship with fire? What's our perception of fire collectively and individually is kind of where I would go to when I experienced this in a dream, as I did recently. So do you want to share any of your thoughts on, or I can share my points that I pointed out as far as just like our relationship and our perception of fire as
Yeah,
like,
I think that would be great.
yeah. So one of the things, the biggest thing is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that we all, I don't know, it's just like our instinct, our primal nature to somewhat fear fire in a sense, because it's the experience of controlling it and not controlling it. And I always think of the Greek myth with Prometheus, as how he was the god to give humans fire, and just that whole experience of like at that time it being forbidden or taboo, or just I feel like fire, that element is so destructive when it's in the wrong hands, and Prometheus giving that power to humans. And also just my mind goes to the creative energy also of fire, where we're also getting this destructive power, but also creative power. So again, it's almost like we're being handed spirit, we're being handed the essence or the power of God, so to speak. And so there's some danger and fear, not only for us as the ones that are, and I hope that I'm making sense, because you guys, I'm very tired. So I'm just going to say,
You're doing great.
yeah, okay. So it's like coming through in my mind and I'm just spitting it out. But basically, there's fear there, not just from us on how do we control this God-given power, in addition to the gods or source or just even nature, like, oh my gosh, humans have fire. And so there's this collective fear is what I'm saying around fire, because it's such a powerful element of nature. So that's one of the things that came forth, is just that energy of fear, and also the creative and destructive aspects of fire.
Absolutely.
So we have in the comments, Christopher's here. Hello, Christopher.
Hello.
Christopher says, some ground cover vegetation doesn't produce the traditional smoke. Oh, so I think you're in the first part of our conversation. I don't know if you joined live, but yeah, so some ground cover vegetation doesn't produce the traditional smoke that we all think of. Sometimes you don't even see smoke. Okay, so that's on point. And that's something that we want to pay attention to, like how do we observe fire and what comes forth from that in our everyday lives in nature. And then he goes on to say, especially when the fire is hot enough, there will be no smoke, just devastation. Right. So there's not even kind of, a heads up, like we feel the heat, we can see the fire, we can see the flames, but maybe even from a distance, just the way that smoke travels, like that can give you some sort of, idea that there is a fire. And so without having the smoke, that seems to possibly create more devastation, which can also add to the element of fear with that, maybe. And then Jay says our divine spark is fire. Yes,
Yep.
I agree with that. So
Yeah.
other ways, oh, sorry, did you have
No,
something
no,
else?
no, no. Go ahead.
So other ways that we collectively relate to fire and our perception of fire, of course, is passion, inspiration, illumination, activating energy or activating qualities in that experience, as well as transformation is one that I should add in there too. And so these are just some points that I noted as far as when I think about fire, this is kind of what comes forth. And of course, we can expand as well with the emotions, like how do we feel when we're in that essence of fire? Like, of course, there's a passion, there's a strong desire, there could be anger, there could be frustration. It's just like, and when you're in those type of emotions, it feels like something's boiling up, especially when you try to contain it and suppress it. Like it just, yeah, it's an uncontrollable. It can feel uncontrollable in those moments.
Absolutely.
So, what are your thoughts on fire?
So I really like this topic for conversation around dreams because, like I said in the beginning, this is something that shows up pretty frequently in my dreams. And I have experienced it in a variety of different ways. In regards to the notes that I took, fire definitely is a representation of our spirit or energy, which I feel like Jay said, you know, it's a spark. It's just kind of like everything, kind of like, you know, the sun is life energy, and that's what I think of with fire just in general. But it can also represent immortality, resurrection, destruction, growth, transformation, as you mentioned, powerful and very overwhelming emotions or motivation. Like you said, it does lead to like enlightenment because of, like, I like to think of like the phoenix rises from the ashes. You know, it faced the destruction and now it's coming out stronger and bolder and braver. And it can also represent birth and death, which goes along with the phoenix. Creativity, and then another aspect of it would be like the breaking down or the burning away of old things you no longer need. And then I kind of went a little deeper into different things that to me represent fire, just because of the different little aspects of it. So like the flame may represent like a smaller issue, a smaller form of transformation, or maybe a warning that you're losing control or that you're gaining control. Or like the start of an emotion, an idea, or transportation, or something beginning or ending, where it kind of like is that last part where it's kind of just like this calm, small aspect that is, you know, important in itself. And when I think about like things like a fireplace, that immediately makes me think of like a portal. And I've had dreams where fireplaces have actually represented a portal, you know, where physically characters in my dream went through and were transported to another plane. But it's also just represented as comfort, as hearth, as a hug, like some kind of comfort. And then going into the sun, as I mentioned before, which it is a big flaming
Fireball.
ball
Yeah.
that the universe, our universe, revolves around, really represents wholeness and the self, consciousness, and life energy. And then going right off of that into stars, it could represent hopes, wishes, guides, spirit, kind of like moving and traveling. When you think of like a shooting star, um, explosions can represent dramatic emergence into the conscious awareness. So things really like that you've been ignoring for a long time, just coming up out of nowhere. And, you know, like you mentioned before, not having the control because you've pushed it away for so long that this is the breaking point. This is the be all end all, and the need to express yourself. And then just burning, which could represent, you know, anything from intense emotions and anger to purification or even sexual desire. You know, it's really important when you're having these dreams to pay attention to the location, how you're feeling, what, like emotionally and mentally, what the fire physically feels like. I've had dreams where I don't feel any heat from fire, and I've had dreams where I'm burning alive. And it's
Wow.
there's which that goes hand in hand with fear. You know, one of my fears is burning alive. And
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like that
Yeah.
might be a universal fear, or just
Yeah,
like a
that's
lot
like
of
one
people.
of the, I'd rather drown than be like burnt alive, like set on fire.
I don't want to die in a horrific way.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like
wouldn't want to drown
there's
either,
almost
but
kind of like a similarity to drowning and burning alive, because what happens is the smoke inhalation usually kills you before the
yeah,
fire actually does,
suffocation.
and it's that
Yeah,
suffocation, and like the same with water going into your lungs and
yeah,
suffocating you. Like none of that sounds good.
yeah.
But there I have so I've had dreams where like meteors are flaming and falling into the earth,
Hmm.
and to me that would represent kind of like a lot of things all at once overwhelming me and boiling over in a sense.
Hmm.
I've had dreams of shooting stars where they felt like other beings, like otherworldly, where it felt like a message or a guide or something holding my hand. Again, the fireplace giving off that warmth and feeling like home. Like nothing is more comforting than like a winter day where you come in from playing in the snow and you put your gloves and socks next to the fireplace and you have hot cocoa and just
Hmm.
there's so many, and the purification of it all.
Yeah,
Something old is dying and being reborn within yourself, and that is, or even like I said, like a flame just guiding you like a star would. Like there's
hmm,
just so much you can take from fire being in place in your dream. Like I love this topic so much, and I didn't even think, like when we were just talking about our dreams, I believe it was Tuesday, not Monday, but we were talking about
yeah,
our dreams where we both had the fire show up in our dream. I didn't even take it really as being an important aspect until you
yeah,
pointed it out, and then I really
yeah.
thought about it, and I was like, actually no, this makes a lot of sense. um but yeah, I just I'm baffled by this experience. Even like the fear of burning to death and then experiencing it in your dream and disconnecting from your body and it feeling like release.
Hmm.
Like it's interesting. Like I said, I've had quite a few dreams of fire in different ways showing up,
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
definitely, I feel like, has come up in many different meanings.
Yeah, so in my dream dictionary, what she noted is that something like if you're experiencing fire in your dreams, of course, this like there's so many ways that you can experience that, and of course the emotions matter. But she says like the general kind of interpretation of this or message is that something in your life, most likely related to work or home, is in the midst of considerable change. And so when I thought about you, I thought about me, I thought about Mary, just like the fact that we all had this dream recently there. And I know we're all going through like major changes.
Absolutely.
And definitely a lot of it. Like for me, I can speak for myself, like work and home.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure I've had fire in my dreams at some point, especially like stars. And I didn't even think to consider that. So yeah, whenever I do see stars in my dream, and a lot of the times I don't think I've ever connected with the sun in my dreams, but seeing stars in my dreams definitely connects me more to some sort of cosmic consciousness
Yeah,
type feeling or connection. So I really enjoy those dreams, and I'll just share what came up for me in my dream because I really don't remember it. So it was just this part. But from what I remember leading up to the point of like witnessing the fire or what had been fire is that I was in my house. It was this house or maybe this house location, but it wasn't this house. It was like a lot bigger. And I don't know, there were a few people there. I want to say like a handful of people. One of them being my neighbor who I haven't officially met because he just moved in like probably 2 months ago. So I haven't met him yet, but he's a younger person or like my age or whatever. Seems really cool. But yeah, so he was at my house along with some other people, and there was like definitely something important happening. I don't know if he was wanting me to pay him for something or something was going on. But I remember what we walked out of the house And when we walked out of the house, like what I'm even picturing is like my front yard was kind of like my backyard. So I have like 20 maple trees in my backyard, and they're all like really close together, even though like the houses are on top of each other, we at least have some like nature. So they're like 20 maple trees in my backyard, but I was walking out to the front yard of this. So it was kind of like it was a reversal.
Mm-hmm.
And the trees they had all been on fire. Like it was basically the black, like burnt visual of them. They weren't burned to the ground. It didn't look crazy. It wasn't like a wildfire. And in the dream, I was trying to recall the source of the fire. And I was like, was it electrical? Because it just seemed different. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like, it didn't seem like a wildfire. I was like, what was the cause of this fire? And that was pretty much the main vibe of like stepping out of the house. I was just really confused and curious. I'm like, what was this? And also, I would say that the feeling wasn't scary. It was almost like this like exhilarating feeling that you get when you feel like fire, like when you're really excited and you feel inspired and there's that desire. Like I felt that, but there was also this mystery and confusion of like, okay, well, how did this start it? And it just felt different is all I could say. Like almost like I was in a different space, even though it was like my backyard and the front yard. So
I
that was really
love that.
interesting.
That I know you talked a little bit about that before with me personally, but hearing it again, it just makes me think
Yeah.
that you're in between that, like like burning away old things and going into new creative personal endeavors. And like I know with my knowledge of certain things that it makes a little bit of sense, and I'm not gonna say anything, but it really just feels like you're in that in between. Things have already burned down and
Mm-hmm.
have purified, and now it's the transformation and the regrowth is beginning.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting, and to hear it's like that rebirth. I'm just, and of course
Yeah.
I'm bringing in my prior knowledge to this, so
Right.
I'm like
Well, it's
extra
interesting too
excited.
because like, and then we had the conversation about it, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after we were talking about fire, you mentioned Pluto and Mars. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the phone or like in our voice messages, or it was like after the fact, or if I even mentioned it, but I pulled the Tower card that morning in my,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yep.
so which the Tower card is Mars's card. And it's like it's this burning tower, but it is like the destructive force or like that destructive energy, things crumbling, but it's like the breaking of old foundations and old patterns and stuff of that nature. But
Mm-hmm.
usually the tower is like on fire, like it's in flames.
Yeah.
And so I just thought like with all the synchronicity is you're just like, oh my gosh, you can't really
It's
make
just so
that up.
fun. It's so fun. Like I love the way that our unconscious works so much. Like, and you can take a lot out of that. It could be personal, it could be business, it could be creativity, it could be so many different things because it's so
Yeah.
personal to you. But then like even just kind of hearing about it and knowing what's going on, it
Yeah.
feels so exciting.
Yeah. No, it was, and it just, yeah, it definitely took over the dream as far, and I'm pretty sure I like woke up after that, or if I didn't, I don't remember what happened after that, because that was like the main thing. And I didn't want to forget it because I was like, wow, this is incredible. Um, other dream symbol for fire interpretations for dream or for fires in dream is again, you want to also pay attention to if the fire in your dream is being controlled or not. And that could also indicate if you're connecting with the fire as your passion and as your emotions, it can give you insight of if you are experiencing like not having control of your emotions, or maybe you are about to boil over. And so you want to allow that to, come forth. And that can give you some sort of insight too, to ground yourself and express your emotions before they do boil over. And then also, I think you mentioned this, Alexis, but what is on fire? Like that's a good one to kind of observe or evaluate within your dream is what specifically was on fire. So for me with trees, I was sitting with that a bit, and it was really interesting because it didn't freak me out, but when I thought about like trees representing growth and wisdom, I was like, well, I don't want that to burn up. Like, I don't want that to be all burnt and, but then I defaulted to my feeling in the dream, and it was all like very exciting. And yeah, so I'm going to connect with that and dwell in that versus like the fear of, oh no, like
Well, and it
I'm
could
going
just be a
backwards.
transformation of your wisdom, though. Like, I don't see it at all as being like a bad thing. It's not like your wisdom's burning away. It's just
Yeah.
you're learning so much and you're creating a new. You know,
Right. It could be activating. It
there's
can
new
be,
growth
yeah.
in your wisdom, in new directions. Think of like trees and their branches.
Right.
There's new pathways coming forth, and it just
Which really makes sense because even as of like tonight, I came across some really new inspiring like information or like stuff about energy and like consciousness, and it really I've been searching for something like fresh, and so that
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. Like I've been a little bit burnt out with just what I've been learning, or not what I've been learning, but I feel like I've been consuming the same type of information, and it's like I
Mhm.
get it, like I get all of this, like I need something new, like a new aha moment, something that is like challenging for me,
Mhm.
and my perceptions, and I received that today, like literally like 2 or 3 hours ago, so it's
And
like
that
that
makes so much
makes sense.
sense because when you go over the same thing over and over again, it just kind of gets old, and you
Yeah.
need that spark of something exciting and new to keep you going in the direction you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
So
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, sorry.
I'll just add electrical fire. I remember coming across this. That specifically can point to something like a brilliant idea or receiving insights. Like when you think about electricity, just that electrifying, activating energy. So if it's like an electrical fire that you experience in the dream, because I did look that up because I was like, was it electric? Was it like a natural thing? And so I was curious of the interpretations of that. So
Well, even like a light bulb over your head when you get an idea, like that classic image,
yeah,
like it's electric.
exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
bright, it's light, it's yeah. So I the same night that you had that dream, I had this dream which included fire, and I'm interested to see how you perceive it and interpret it. If you're ready.
Yeah.
All right. So that night I had a dream that I was with a group of people when one of them approaches me. So all of the people kind of felt like NPCs, maybe like a mix between NPCs and more familiar, but this person kind of stood out. And they told me about these other dimensions and how one of them was crashing or merging into our own. So it was
Mm.
causing glitches within our own reality. And what they did was they held out their phone and it had a screen of instructions that were in an unintelligible like script, almost resembling the aesthetic of like coding from the 90s,
Oh
like that
wow.
type of energy. And with his right hand or their right hand, they held down buttons, and with the left hand, they lit a lighter and held the flame up to the phone. And this very specific set of things that they did immediately transported us to this other dimension that was crashing with ours.
Mm.
So we landed on this huge stone, like greenish gray ball. I mean, it was huge and it was shifting. It had like ridges and walls that were continuously moving.
Mm.
And it was floating within this black gray kind of void. It was kind of chilly, and there are these like creatures, these huge creatures, massive creatures, like what we are to ants, this is how they were to us. And they were kind of
Mm.
blurred out and glitched, and I couldn't really see them, but they weren't interacting much with us. And he was talking to me about what this dimension was, but honestly I was so perplexed by like the whole experience that I was just paying attention to how I was feeling. And then we were back in that room, And I remember when we got back in that room, I walked outside and it was like a cool, crisp sunset. I could see the sun.
Mm.
And in that moment, that green stone shifting ball that I had landed on in that dimension had shifted right in front of the sun with one of the creatures walking behind it. And then it shifted back. And
Shifted
then
back to what? Or just
shifted
like
back to like just being
not being
our
there? Oh,
reality.
okay.
So you couldn't see
Oh,
those two things anymore. So it
right.
kept kind of glitching in and out, almost like a Venn diagram of our two dimensions, pulling back and forth.
Yeah.
And when
Hmm.
that went
Oh, that's
away, I walked back into this building, and the building was set up like a house, but there were so many people around. And then the person who had originally showed me and shared this information with me started putting off very threatening energy. And I remember I grabbed the phone from him and I ran into this room and I locked it. And there were family members and stuff with me in this room. It was almost like we were all kind of in this, I don't know, some kind of compound camp where like there was some kind of something like we all knew something was happening. We just didn't know what. And this person was informing me about this event. And I stood there, or I guess I sat there. I sat down and I started trying to mimic exactly what he showed me to get to this other dimension. So I kept lighting the fire, I kept holding the buttons, I kept looking at the screen and doing
mm,
everything like I thought he told me, but it wouldn't shift the dimension. And then I
mm.
woke up.
Wow. So it's interesting. Of course, the first thing I thought about was or well, yes, time travel, but astral travel.
Yeah.
And I was listening and wasn't quite sure, but what confirmed that was when you mentioned like didn't you mention like Venn diagrams
Yeah.
overlapping?
Yep.
So that is from what I'm picturing, like the two circles overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
That is the Vesca Pisces. And I was talking about that sacred shape for weeks, probably months. And as of recently, when it comes to like astral travel, or say if there is a reality that you want to experience, like especially in your dreams, but through meditation, you can visualize that sacred shape and the space in which they converge, with which they like meet, which is that almond shape. That is like, that's the portal. And so I thought it was really interesting that you saw that in your dream, which to me, that definitely indicated, okay, you were traveling somewhere, like not in this reality, especially with the coding. It felt very, yeah, it just felt kind of like very like energetic, like traveling in a sense, especially because as like we say, math and numbers are universal, essentially. That makes sense. Like that mixed with the fire flame, the activating, and the transfer of energy is kind of what came through. And so that was the biggest thing. And I felt that you were, yeah, you were in a different space, especially the beings were different, not what you would expect, like, most of the time, or not. I feel most people don't believe this now, but of course we're like, aliens, they might look like humans, but no, they can appear in any way. And so it felt to me like a sci-fi movie. Your dreams always feel like movies. And so that's what I got from
It
that.
was so crazy. I mean, the very intricate way of getting to one place and then trying to mimic it and it not really hitting, and like the aspect of that Venn diagram that I explained, where like that's what the like dimensions, I could see the dimensions as for, like it's like if you have two dimensions, it felt like they were bumping into each other, but
Yeah,
the inertia
they were
was so
merging.
intense that
Right.
they like combined in that little almond shape. They were just going back and forth between being a combined thing and separate things. And it was like there was the aspect of the flame. It was on, I don't know, it was so specific. And like if you're in this reality and you put your flame up to a phone, you're not going to
Right.
get
Yeah.
anything except maybe a damaged phone.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there, it was so specific, and it was just so interesting. You know, I wish I could like send you the movie in my
I
head
feel like I can see,
directly.
yeah. I feel like I can see it. It's definitely taking me into the realm of sci-fi movies. And yeah, it just makes sense too with like what really stands out to me, which is confirmation as far as like astral travel in my perspective, because it's like when you think about even the circle or just like the point, like if you think about the point and then the circle around it,
Mm-hmm.
that within itself, that symbol is the sun, right?
Yep,
That's the symbol for the sun. And that, but the actual point is like that source energy. And then the circle around it, you can also look at as the world created, right? So, and then we can break, like move that out into like the shape of a sphere. So I like how there were
absolutely.
two individual circles and they're like merging with one another and separating. And when they're merging, they get to this perfect position in which you can jump from one world to the other. And that's kind of
Absolutely.
what I thought about when you mentioned that. And I was like, yep, you were definitely somewhere else. So I mean, as far as like the other interpretation, we would go deeper into that. But I felt like that was you experiencing some other reality for whatever reason. What was your feelings in the dream?
Curiosity, interest, and then towards the end, anxiety, because again, that energy that first came forward as being like, hey, this is something that you should know. This is information that will be helpful for you and your survival and the way we're going to go about this, became threatening. Like all of a sudden, what was giving me comfort and help was now a threat.
Mm,
Was and so that was such an odd experience, and even
yeah.
me like trying to get into this alternate dimension but not having a full grasp into how to properly do it. So I get there, you know, the whole thing was very interesting, and there was an aspect where like maybe I was more in control in the beginning, and then I had lost my control towards the end. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I said, with the flame like starting and ending,
Yeah.
like the big thing is in the middle, and then the beginning and
Yeah.
end are kind of
It's
like
almost like what
dwindling out.
your like your ability to utilize the fire in the way that it was intended or the way that you wanted to, you had no like it was like you didn't have control over that,
Yeah.
you know,
Or
that
even like
aspect of it.
my feet weren't grounded in that reality anymore. Like I
Mhm.
was waking up, so I
Yeah.
couldn't do what I wanted to do because I was in this process of transition from being unconscious to consciousness.
Mm. Wow. That's
These things are so crazy. I love talking about.
I love it. So Jim says that your dreams are usually very interesting and cool. Yours, Lex. And I agree. They're like, I feel a lot of Alexis's dreams are movies. I'm like, well, I know you're writing it down, a lot of them. So I'm like, you gotta write this down and do something.
I have this one written down, thankfully.
Nice.
I would like to get in the habit of doing it ritualistically, but me and consistency are not friends yet.
Yeah,
We're getting
I
there.
feel you. I'm slowly getting back into writing them. I've also realized that my dream recall, like outside of writing it, has gotten stronger since I've started. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for that. So I don't feel the pressure of always having to write. But when it comes to having all the details, it's so nice because I wish, like the dream I just had a couple of days ago, like I wish that I knew what was going on before, if there was an after, because that
Yeah,
could just give me deeper insight to like what was really going on
yeah,
outside of the fire and the trees. Um,
absolutely. And I find just the aspect of these trees being burnt, just for me, is such, and I know to a lot of people, it's like it seems like a very scary experience, but to me, it just feels like the calm after the destruction
yeah,
and just the
yeah,
rebuilding and the regrowth and
yeah.
everything, and just
It
like
was so
what is to
yeah.
come.
It was just so weird. I'm like, what? Like I was just so confused. And I think it's interesting too, wanting to know like the root of the fire, which I don't know, I can go and like my mind is already going in so many directions about that. Like, just do I even need to know? Then I was like, a part of me was like, yes, because I don't know. I was just going in
Or do
that
you
very
already know? You already know, it's just not like pinpointed yet.
right. Yeah. It's not fully concrete. And so that actually, when you say that, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm gonna leave it be. I'm gonna leave it there. So we have some comments here. Shauna says, I don't often dream of fire, but I did have a vision of my higher self wielding a sword of white fire. Ooh. It
Oh,
happened when we were evacuated from our home during a fire in our mountains a few years ago. Our home was saved 3 times from the fire that night. Wow.
well, that's
So,
what it feels like. It feels like there was something protecting your space, you
yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
protecting you and your space and your energy, like that. And when I think about a flaming sword, that's what I think about. It's like there's something on guard.
Yeah. Yeah. And Shauna, I don't know if you're still here. I'm assuming that, yeah, the fire that your home was saved from, I'm assuming that happened in real life, I would say. Yeah. So you got to let me know if that's the
It
case.
sounds like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, please let us know.
yeah. Shauna says yes. And
Absolutely. I
yeah,
that
I don't know if you're familiar, Shauna, with Archangel Michael, but he's definitely depicted with a flaming sword, and he is like the protector angel or guardian. And then it also makes me think of like in the Bible story of Adam and Eve when they were like, I guess, exiled or pushed out of the Garden of Eden, the gate was blocked with a flaming sword. So it definitely, there's some shielding, there's some protection in that reference. And even white is a very like spiritual, especially white fire.
yes,
That's definitely got some like
otherworldly,
energy.
powerful, spiritual,
Yeah.
just so much energy. And like, even if it was your higher self protecting your space, like, it's just that
Yeah.
is so
That's
powerful
really
and so
powerful.
beautiful. And I thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
because the way that fire shows up in everybody's dreams and how it relates to your situation and what you're going through and how you feel, it's so interesting.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, the fires were in Santa Cruz Mountains in California, and Shauna says that Archangel Michael is my friend. So, all right, well,
I
that
love
was
that.
spot on. That was very clear. And I wanted to also share Mary had a dream involving an explosion, or at least I don't know the context of the explosion and if she remembers like what happened with the explosion, because Mary, I see that you're back. Um, but explosions in dreams, how have you've experienced that? Wasn't the dream that you shared with me, wasn't an explosion? I'm trying to remember. Alexis, your dream that
Oh,
you
I'm like, me
recent.
or
Yeah.
Mary? I've definitely, like, the dream where I had been in this old library, it caught on fire, I had burned alive, and then my spirit left my body and went a distance away and watched the rest of the library kind of like explode into
Yeah.
flames. Like, I've had experiences like that. And I feel like I've had a lot of other ones too. Like I said, fire is something that shows up in my dreams a lot. So I feel like I really need to do a backlog.
Yeah.
But to me, that really, really expresses like something that is being pulled to your forefront that needs all your attention, something that maybe you have been pushing to the side or not being able to express is now coming up at full force. Like, needs that attention, needs the yeah, just to
Yeah.
be looked at and experienced.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And I'm realizing that, like I said, I don't remember fire specifically in my dreams, but definitely like for me, water tends to be the element. So that'll be interesting to compare like how fire and water for me personally, like especially because they're like such a contrasting
Oh yeah.
elements, how they show up in my dreams and like my feelings and both of those experiences.
Absolutely. And
Um,
I'm right there with you where like water shows up in my dreams just as much, if not more, as fire. So it's interesting to see how all of the elements kind of play a role in that unconscious state.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna have to cut this short tonight because I'm very distracted. I can hear my little one crying
I
and she
think
needs
so,
to go to
yeah.
bed. Thank you everyone for participating.
Yes, thank you so
And
much.
yes, we'll be talking more about fire. We'll be talking more about all the elements. So definitely feel free to share more of your experiences and questions and comments in the replay of the video. Um, yeah, I don't even know. Can you hear her?
I can't hear her, but I was hearing
Speaking of
Wednesday.
fire, yeah, speaking of fire. But yeah, so thank you everyone. Please like the
Thank you.
video if you like the video. Sorry to cut so short, but life. So
Girl, we're right on time.
right,
We've
we're
been
right on
going
time.
so
Usually we're
past the
ending it
last
at
couple
10.
weeks. You're
Yeah.
good. We're perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, everyone. So I hope that you have sweet dreams and we'll talk to you in the next one.
See you next
Bye.
week.
Good night.